The world is being artificially put into a cascade of crises that will lead to the accelerated, controlled collapse and the mass death of billions upon billions of people. Folks would tune into the broadcast 25 years ago and think that when I made these type of predictions off in the future, I said 25, 30 years from now, they will be organizing the collapse of civilization and the Great Culling. And it sounded a bit fanciful back then, even though I was reading from source documents. Well, now it doesn't seem too fanciful anymore, does it? We're here. And that's why, if you're a TV viewer, you see the image we have behind us of the U.S. Capitol occupied by the globalists with the red storms in the background with lightning. That's about the best way I can describe the true evil that has control of our government at almost every level. We are the bad guys. We have been captured. Because we were the good guys, we became the most powerful, wealthy, loved nation in the world. Still had incredible problems, but because we had a Christian but also rugged Western Renaissance bearing, we were the freest, greatest, most productive nation on earth. Evil came, took over, and now we have become a slave of the New World Order, and the wages of sin are death. Let me just do this. Let me just show you the headlines we've got here as best I can. Evergrande, as we predicted a year ago, has gone belly up, $300 billion, underpinning the Chinese Communist Party system that undoubtedly is going to bring down the Chinese economy into a huge stock market crash, even though they're totally state-run and it's all propped up. And it's going to cause massive problems in the rest of the world system. You add to that the Great Reset and the tens of trillions pumped out per major nation into the economy and all the other economic things that are unfolding, the unwillingness to work, supply chain breakdowns, the forced COVID lockdowns, mass starvation in the third world, mass collapse in the third world, then domino affecting into the West. And that's why you see them letting murderers out of jail and armed robbers out after a week or a day. Or a guy shoots 4 people at a school, he's released the next day because he's black. All of that is being done to totally undermine things and put you in a state of confusion so that you'll accept the new global currency, you'll accept the nighttime curfews, you'll accept having to have a pass on your phone to even leave your house. You will accept the Great Reset. You won't live in your own home anymore. You'll live in a commune. You'll own nothing. You'll have nothing. These are all real quotes. You'll have a microchip in your body to buy and sell. Klaus Schwab says it on TV, and people say, why do you care about Klaus Schwab? Well, he's the head of the Bilderberg Group, which is the top globalist meeting. And then they went out and set up the Davos Group to externalize the hierarchy. $300 billion. And how do the Chinese respond? They respond with dictatorship, making Xi Jinping dictator for life. And what are the globalists doing here? They've run Ponzi schemes even bigger. They're heavily involved in it. Well, what does Janet Yellen do? Oh, she tells you, get ready to have the Federal Reserve take over all your private bank accounts and monitor everything you do in live time. That's what the legislation says. And then you see the nominee to be the head of the banking system, and she says, oh, I don't believe in any private banks. We need to have the Federal Reserve, which is owned by a few private banks, control everything. I mean, we're at that point where the power grab is here, the martial law is here. We're here. We're inside the New World Order global government takeover that leads to depopulation, war, collapse, crime in the streets, the end of civilization, the post-industrial world. And an industrial world that needs to replace its population with at least 2.1 people for every 2 people to not collapse in every societal, cultural actuary out there. It's one of the most studied phenomenons. And the fact that the West, on average, is having 1.3 children. And the fact that the globalists have set up policies to kill development and to discourage childbearing and rearing means already that it's going to be very hard to stop a massive societal collapse. And Xi Jinping knows this. He came out last year and said, I'm ordering the Chinese people to have basically 3 children, and you'll get massive tax incentives if you have 3 or more. And instantly, George Soros went from saying Xi Jinping was the best person on earth overnight to saying he is the greatest threat to the world and is Hitler 2.0. That's a quote. He didn't work for Hitler like you did there, but I agree. He's just as bad as you, George. So think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Our media spun like, oh, he allows it. No, no, no. They're encouraging it, just like Vladimir Putin. What did Elon Musk come out and say yesterday? He said, civilization will collapse if we don't have 2.1 I'm liking Elon Musk more and more every day. So in the West, they're saying and doing everything they can that if you were following a checklist to collapse society, they're doing it. If you're following a checklist to take humanity to the next level, Elon Musk is doing it. Except he's such a libertarian, he's like, well, yeah, I'll sell you brain chips and wirehead stuff if you want, but I'll do it to empower you. But I'm not going to make you do it. And he's against forced inoculation. And I agree with the Musk model. I mean, my uncle has a chip in his brain from a motorcycle accident he had. He doesn't just have the nerve stimulator. He's got some more high-tech deal. He had the nerve stimulator at first. Now they've added some other thing in him, and he's a lot better. Doesn't have the seizures anymore. But again, he chose to go do that. That's a great thing. That's technology. But we don't want to be forced to become Darth Vader. And that's what they're doing with the inoculations and the nanotech and the gene therapy, where the Davos group admits, we are going to put it into the shots, it will migrate into your brain, and we will take you over whether you like it or not. I mean, that's Klaus Schwab, that's all of them. This is a cult. So, I can sit here and just cover this piece of news, that piece of news. Oh, look, war with Russia. Oh, world leaders are saying, let's preemptively strike them with nukes. Oh, Evergrande collapsed, $300 billion, clearly triggering a world financial crisis. Futures are already way down. But when you understand that it's being orchestrated, they're making it as bad as they possibly can and bragging about it and engaging in actions that will destroy civilization. And we're almost past the point of no return. So when I get up here and hit the panic button, it's like a thermonuclear, a reactor. Or a nuclear reactor, thermonuclear reactor, that's the sun, a nuclear reactor. The alarms go off because if you don't keep the rods in, if you don't keep them cool, you can get a chain reaction, you can get a meltdown, and basically the rods aren't in the water anymore. And they're catching on fire, and they're starting to burn. And if they blow up, if they go critical, you know where we are. Well, we're inside the reactor right now, and it's and I'm looking at what Klaus Schwab and all of them are doing. There's no way they're going to ride this collapse down and stay alive themselves. All I can tell you is the answer is going to be going and getting very conservative Christian communities in the middle of nowhere where people just dig in and live very austerely and try to stay off the radar. Because once all this falls and once all this goes down, it's guaranteed massive war. And I've really tried to stop this, and we had a chance to back this off years ago. But I just want everybody to know right now that when you look at Klaus Schwab and you look at Bill Gates, these are psychos that are crashing the world economy for not just money and power, but to kill people. Because they believe the earth is going to collapse anyways, and that this collapse is coming. They're Malthusians. They believe in this fraud. And so they want to artificially have the collapse now. And I use the analogy of Red Adair, the famous oil field trailblazer, who would roll in a wheelbarrow full of TNT or dynamite into a big gas fire or oil fire, because it'd burn for years if you don't put them out. And the big detonation would knock the oxygen out of the fire and put it out. And it worked. And he pioneered it. Well, the globalists are doing that. They see the world as an oil well fire, and the human population is too big and all this. So they're rolling in the TNT to try to knock the fire out, the fire of civilization. But it's not going to work like that. It's going to cause a giant war. And so I could sit here and talk about all these stories and all these reports all day, and there's a chance we could get some smarter heads to prevail around the world and stop this march towards total destruction. But if we don't stop the COVID rollout, if we don't stop the Great Reset, if we don't stop the carbon tax, if we don't stop their whole austerity movement, the world will implode, and the process of people wanting to feed themselves and take care of their families will make zombie apocalypse movies look like a walk in the park compared to where we're going to be. I mean, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, staring into infinity right now, and we knew this was coming. We knew this was a trigger for the collapse, and it's already happening. Evergrande has finally defaulted. Here's what that means, says Zero Hedge. Here's what happens. And if you got a $300 billion real estate mortgage bank of China that's invested all over the world, what does that really mean? What is 300 billion? How many zeros is 300 billion? That's a lot of zeros. How many zeros is it? Let me see. 1, 10, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. Yeah. 300 billion. Now, when you realize that they leverage that and sell those mortgages sometimes 100 plus times, what does that mean? It's trillions. Trillions. 30 trillion. So, that's why there's an issue. Because, man, boy, little mustard seed. They'll take $1 you invest in their company, it'll be $1 million when they're done. And then these bankers give it all themselves and pretend like it's real. And now they're at the end of the Ponzi scheme. They don't want to go to jail like Bernie Madoff, who, again, was a low-level amateur compared to these people. I mean, Madoff wasn't running a Ponzi scheme like the Rothschilds for 200, 300 years. I mean, he was just doing it lately. So, what does this signify when you've got trillions and trillions and trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions, tens of trillions leveraged out on this fraud? And the bubble can't get any bigger. What are they going to do is your big question. And I can tell everybody, it starts with a W, it's got an A in the middle, and then it's got an R after it, and then it's got 3 in the Roman numeral for you. That's what they do. This is what they do to hold everyone hostage to do what they say, because they don't want to go to prison. So they start a nuclear war. See, that's what this equation, you would see some Einstein equations. This is what this equation means right here. That's where this goes. Oh, Israel just announced 7 shots is now what allows you to leave your house. That's now fully vaccinated. A giant Milgram experiment, psychological warfare experiment to see what you'll put up with. And of course, next month, it'll be 8 shots, 9 shots, 10 shots, daily shots, hourly shots, mentally shots. Because you ask what the limit of psycho control freaks are, the limit you put up with. So here at the end of the potential world, and that's where we are, if we keep following lunacy and the programming of big banks and rich billionaires that have control of the media and are telling us the moon's made of cheese, and are telling us mommy doesn't exist, and are telling us that gender doesn't exist, and are telling us all this delusional craziness. If we continue to go down that road, we deserve what we get. I mean, it's like Jussie Smollett. Oh, they won't give me more security? They won't give me a raise? I'll just say some white people beat me up. But then the police didn't play along. So the answer is, well, let's just federalize the police. Then they'll all play along. But once you get everyone to play along with delusion, what happens? Collapse. And that's the really evil group above it all that is manipulating and lining up the collapse of our civilization. It's incredible.